got him?
They had the rest of that week to get them done before Sunday.
I can hear you.
I had a few.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. It's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting of Lancaster County Council to order here on Monday, June the 24th, 2024. And it's great to see all our staff and constituents out here today as this is our third reading of our budget. And with that, we do have some sad news, and I guess it's good news, bad news. The bad news is we're losing Mr. Blackman. He has won his Republican primary running for the state Senate district number 27. So this will be his last meeting tonight. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with you these last few years, and we wish you well in the November election. And if anybody else wants to say their goodbyes.
Yeah, Alan.
Good or bad? Ms. McGriff.
Well,
Are they clapping? Are they clapping because I'm leaving?
no, Alan. But, you know, I got my tissue right here because this is going to be a very sad and long meeting to lose my sparring partner. I will have no one else to argue with because I'm always right and he thinks he's always right. So,
What my wife says.
so Alan, honestly, you know, you're going to be missed. And as I said, I'm going to be at that State House on the balcony hollering out your name so they can say, who's that lady? But we're going to miss you, and good luck, and I'm sure you're going to be successful in your run for the state seat.
Thank you.
Alan, I too would like to thank you for what you've done, and it's been an honor to serve the citizens of Lancaster County with you. And I look forward to working with you with the delegation, and hope we continue to see your face.
Thank you, Billy.
Alan, it's been a pleasure serving with you. Now, when you get down to Columbia, I want you to remember all the things I taught you while you were sitting beside me these 2 years. Now, all kidding aside, you have done a great job for the county. You put citizens first, and you've got some big shoes to fill, but I know that you've got some good people behind you, and we're looking forward to working with them.
Mr. Blackman, would you like to say a parting word?
Well, you know, I would. I've enjoyed my time on council. Been one of the most meaningful things I've done. But I will say, in the time of politics being so nasty these days, you know, one good thing that I learned right off the bat being on this council, and I learned it from Ms. McGriff, is that we argue, and we argue intensely, but when the vote's taken, we let it go and move on to the next vote. And if our leaders, state leaders, national leaders could learn that lesson, I think we would have a much more productive government. And so for that, I appreciate that lesson. And I've, you know, just had the best council to work with the whole time I've been here. Appreciate every one of you and every one of you, what you've taught me and how you've worked with me. And I certainly appreciate it. Certainly appreciate the staff. Dennis, thank you for your service. I do hope that our county employees feel respected and appreciated for what we do up here. It's tough decisions. There's never a complete right answer, but we've always tried to look after our employees. And with that in mind, we also have always, I think as a council, tried to be cognizant of our taxpayers, our citizens, because they're the ones that finance this operation, and we're spending their money. And so I appreciate how y'all have dealt with that, and we've worked together to try to look after our citizens and their tax dollars. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Louise, I forgot about you up there on the wall. Would you like to have any parting remarks?
I actually just, thank you, Mr. Harper. I actually texted Alan and just let him know that I appreciate his guidance and his example on council, and I learned a lot from him, especially about looking at the budgets. And so I just want to say thank you, Alan. Going to miss you, but I know you're going to do great things in the state.
Thank you, Jose.
If y'all don't mind, we're gonna get up, give him a standing ovation. Stand on up, you gotta do the pledge of allegiance. Would you please remain standing and join Councilmember Alan Blackman as he leads us in our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our invocation.
Let us pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity I've had to be up here and serving the citizens. Lord, just be with each and every one of us. Keep us safe as we go home tonight. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
That's right.
Let's move on down to our approval of our agenda this evening. To have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion for Mr. Carnes. Second from Ms. McGriff. We'll have to do roll call tonight. So, Ms. Simpson.
Charlene McGriff.
Here,
Billy,
Approve.
approved.
Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Jose Luis.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approve.
Alan Blackman.
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval of our agenda. Mr. Graham is not with us tonight. So let's move on down to our citizens' comments. Please bear in mind, this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. We have, is it Ann Dykeman?
My name is Ann Dykeman. I live at 5004 Redwood Grove Trails in Treetops. What else would you know? That's it?
Do you,
Okay. Couple of things. I know I missed a couple of meetings, but the last one I was at, you were talking about the budget and you were talking about raises. Quite a few of you wanted to have equal raises. Well, I don't think equal is correct. We should be getting raises as the job is being done. You hire somebody, that doesn't mean they get equal to somebody else. And that means if you're going to give them all the same thing, why should anybody work? There's no reason for it. I know I work at my job, I have to prove myself, and that's how I get a raise. So what makes the board think that everybody in the government should have an equal raise? I disagree with it unbelievably. Another thing is, as far as who's going to correct the town's math when it comes to taxes without Mr. Blackman? That's a major question. And how much are the rooftop taxes going up? And why can't new building pay for new schools? And honestly, I don't understand why our taxes have to even go up that much when we have so much buildings going on. And you guys, you want raises, but, and I'm not doing just one at a time, but you're not stopping anything and you're not controlling anything. You're just throwing it all in. And I don't think it's right because our fire department, police department, everything else is being jeopardized by all the population and schools and everything else is being jeopardized. So I don't really think that it's right to have a raise and have it all equal.
Thank you, Ms. Stein. Are there any electronic citizens' comments?
No, sir.
No electronics citizens' comments. So we have just a couple of special presentations. We have a proclamation for our Parks and Recreation. Chris isn't here, so Jason, would you come on up?
We'll have Jason McCrae as our Deputy Director for Parks and Recreation come receive the proclamation and certainly recognize the other Parks and Recreation staff in attendance tonight.
A lot of exciting stuff going on in Parks and Recreation. We're in the process of starting our new regional park. Hopefully we can take some ground there sometime in October. And this is a proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of Lancaster County, and whereas Parks and Recreation programming and educational activities such as out-of-school child programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to the childhood development, and whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for water sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles, and now, therefore, I, Steve Harper, on behalf of Lancaster County Council, do hereby proclaim the month of July as Parks and Recreation County. All right, we recently had our annual Ted Arent Board Member of the Year banquet or presentation back in June. And our winner is not here tonight, was Greg Nicholson. He's the Fire Commission nominee, and it's, most of you know that come to these meetings, he's usually here. He's the chief of the Indian Land Pleasant Valley Fire Improvement District. Getting that correct. And but we had some great nominees: Tim Hallman, Melissa Jones Horton, and our own Claire McConaughey with the Keep Lancaster County Beautiful Board. She does a great job up in the Panhandle. I'm gonna get her down south of Lancaster for a few weeks to help clean up down that way. And also Brent Stogner, Rodney Thomas, and Fred Witherspoon. And if y'all would give all these a big round of applause.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a video highlight of the night. So we have
All
a
right.
video so everyone can see the award recipients, and we'll have it start with Ms. Simpson.
done. And again, we thank all our volunteers. We have 21, I think, boards and commission that advise the council on many different subjects, and we truly appreciate what they do. Let's go on down. We have our overview of our recommendations from the State Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. This is presented by Mr. Haskell Falconberry, the Chair of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Mr. Falconberry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. It is my great honor to bring before you this evening the recommendations for the distribution of funds for the state accommodation tax funds for fiscal year 2023 and 2024. These recommendations come from County Council pursuant to SC Code 6-4-25C. Council will be asked to approve the committee's recommendations by resolution later in this meeting. During the grant cycle, applications were to be received by April the 26th, 2024. The Accommodation Tax Advisory Committee met on June the 7th, 2024 to review the grant requirements received pursuant from applicants and discuss and finalize the committee's recommendation to council. The committee received 9 applications totaling $240,352, but had only $80,197 funds to distribute. The council recommended funding the Carolina Chili Championship at $26,000, the Lancaster County SC 250 Committee at $22,500, the Lancaster County Council of Arts at $10,000, the Lindsay Pettis Greenway at $10,000, and the Lancaster County Community Center at $10,000. The county will have $1,697 left to roll over into the next fiscal year grant cycle, which brings the total distribution the year to $80,197. We are excited that these projects will bring tourists to Lancaster County by the funding provided for the following projects. 1, for the marketing and promotions of the Carolina Chili Championship, which is a sanctioned International Chili Society event. 2, supply for the split rail fencing for Hanging Rock and Buford Massacre battlefields, with the labor to be provided by the committee itself. 3, public art murals for Lancaster County Council of the Arts. 4, additional lighting and equipment for the lighting of the Greenway event for Lindsay Pettis Greenway. And 5, purchase of materials for reunions at the Lancaster County Community Center. I appreciate your time and attention and would appreciate approval of Resolution 1264-R2024. With kindest regards, Haskell Falconberry. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Falconberry, do you mind when, will you be available? Because I think there might be a few questions that,
Certainly.
so we'll call you back up if we need to. Thank you. All right, let's move on down to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 7A and 7B.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Mosteller, and can he have it on his last meeting? You good with that?
Will be nice.
We'll let Mr. Blackman have that second. Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval of our consent agenda tonight. Let's move on down to our non-consent agenda. Resolution 1264-R 2024 regarding endorsement of the recommendations of the State Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion? Need a motion to bring it to the floor. Motion for, you make that motion?
Yes.
A motion from Ms. McGriff. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carnes. Ms. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. We've heard from the committee chair, Mr. Falconberry, and I'd like to thank him and the other accommodations tax committee members for their participation, their energy, and their flexibility throughout the process. I can answer any questions you might have about it, about the grant application process.
Go ahead. Who wants to go first? Mr. Mostello.
Yes, I appreciate the job that the committee does. It's a thankless job. Appreciate them, what they do every year on this, but I was a little disappointed to see that the Lancaster County Society of Historic Preservation did not receive any money. We give them the old jail and the old library to preserve, and at least we could support them with this. The historic area will draw people into the county for hospitality, people coming back into county spending money, so it just keeps things rolling. So, but I would like to see that if the committee or we need a motion to move some of this money, split some of this money up to where we could get the Historic Preservation Committee some of this money.
You can.
Do we need to go ahead?
Mr. Falconberry, do you mind coming up here? I mean, I know you had a request of 200 and how many, $280,000 or something like that? For the total request.
Their request, yeah, we had a request of, total request of $240,000. We had, I would like to point out there was no application we saw that wasn't worthy. Our function is to bring people to the county. The specific request that I believe Billy's alluding to was they requested money for archives. And when the archives, we didn't feel like that people would come to visit just for archives. They wanted, it wasn't for a building. We have given money in the past. We did not feel that that was the reason the accommodation tax was here. They say heads and beds, people to stay, and we didn't feel like that was would accomplish that at this time.
Right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Falconberry?
And make sure you have the information is the Society for Historical Preservation requested $65,000.
I mean, anything we could give them would help. I mean, you know, they do bring a lot of people into the county on that Gay Street there of what that group has done down through there, and they're buying up a lot of places in there. And like I say, we contributed the jail and the old library to them, and it is bringing a lot of people back into the county. It really is. If you go down there when they have those different functions that they have a lot of people there. So that was my concern, is that we could support this, since the county, you know, we're trying to get people back into the county through, and the city's also trying real hard to get people back into the county. So I feel like this is as much of a draw as any of these others on the list, me personally, of what I've seen with them and all. So that's why I would like to see some money. I know you can't do no $60,000 what they want, but anything that we could do to help them, I think we should do.
Did they make a request for the budget for the same amount? amount, or when the budget was being prepared?
I don't think we had an outside request from them with others. They just went through the ATAX process.
So did you feel like their application didn't qualify for this accommodations money, or did they fall within the guidelines of the accommodations money?
The committee felt that the request for archives, specifically archives, was not pursuant for us to provide funds at this time to meet what our goal is to bring people to Lancaster to stay and a period of time.
Yeah, and I sort of agree with Billy to the point where, folks come to this area for different reasons, and we don't know whether it's to visit the archives or whatever, but the county has allowed them to take over that building and to take care of it. So at some point, I think we need to give some sort of appreciation to them for what they're doing. I don't know how we can fit it in here, but we really need to do something, because we've actually turned it over to them. And I know we bring visitors into that block. Now, how many times they will go to that archive center, I don't know. But that whole block draws tourists.
Well, maybe since if staff could look into how much we have, how much we're saving by not paying utility bills and insurance or whatever on those buildings, that council could look into.
Is that something we can look at, Dennis, to see whether there's anything we can
Council
do?
could do.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, based on the discussion tonight, we can see if, we have budget adoption tonight, so we haven't identified any
Yes.
freed up funding, so to speak, looking at that with that transfer. To be clear, we do have more money in the cooperative extension budget to cover the rent, to cover some of the utility use, so the Historical Preservation Society is not taking on the maintenance costs for this first year.
Plus, we have $1,697 that necessarily don't have to roll over. It can go toward whatever we're able to do.
I mean, to me, this group is worked hard and basing their decision on the applications that we have not seen, and I would tend to support what they have presented to us and look at some way of maybe helping them with the archives, because the old library building that they have taken from us, we were going to have to spend a lot of money on it at some point. And that's
So tonight,
my thought.
do we, as a council, either accept in total or reject in total, or can we modify?
You can modify, so you can change the numbers. This is a recommendation from the committee, so you do have the option tonight to modify their recommendation just through an amendment to the resolution. And so if you want to do that, it's one avenue, or if you want me to do some more looking and come back and do a budget amendment in a meeting or two, we can do
I
that.
think, and I'm sure that the other applicants qualify and really need their monies, but I think we can pull a little from each total to give to the archives because of the services they're doing for the county.
It is pulling a little bit from each one of the ones that's recommended, something that's more beneficial to them, or is it more beneficial for us to look for alternative funding that may allow them to have more funding than what they could get from us picking and choosing?
The chairman of the committee may be able to speak to it, but I know with their request of $65,000, I'm not sure if that was in mind of a couple specific archives or whatever. So I don't know if there's some other application information that would help Okay.
Well, I do appreciate the committee's thought process. I think y'all are spot on. I think the council wants to do something, though, for the request from the historical people. I'm going to start off by making a proposal that we amend the motion and we take 1,000 from each of the 5 potential recipients. So we reduce every one of their numbers by 1,000 and then put 5,000 toward the archives. So I'll throw that out there. If y'all want different numbers, vote mine down, put yours up, whatever you all want to do. But I make a motion that we amend this proposal. Because again, I don't want to take away from what y'all did. I mean, because if we sit here and nitpick things, that would be shame on us. So in order to maybe bridge the gap between what we're talking about, that would be my proposal to sort of.
And how much now?
Just take 1,000. So the Chili Championship gets 25. The South Carolina 250 committee would get 21.5. Lindsay Pettis 9. Lancaster County Council of Arts 9, and Lancaster County Community Center 9, and then the historical, is it called the society, that Preservation Society would get 5,000. And we had to roll, let's add the rollover funds to it to make it $6,697. Now,
You actually have the application from them there? Okay, I was wondering what did they want out for that 65,000?
but also too, y'all, I mean, I'm in favor of looking at other sources to help them out too, because this is somewhat the county's contribution to the city or to the city's beautification by supporting them, because they are doing such an outstanding job, and we need to be supportive of what they're doing. So I throw this out as a number. Please feel free to modify my amendment.
What's your motion again, Alan?
That we take 1,000, here's my motion. I make a motion that we approve Carolina's Chili Championship for 25,000. Lancaster County SC 250 Committee, 21,500. Lindsay Pettis Greenway Incorporated, 9,000. Lancaster County Council of Arts, 9,000. Lancaster County Community Center, 9,000. And then the Lancaster Historical Preservation Society, 5,000, plus the 1,697, so they would get $6,697.
Can you add to that and look for other sources?
Oh, yeah, and I definitely was, that's what I was leading up to a minute ago, we need to continue to look at other sources to help, because that is really,
agree with
I think,
that.
improving downtown Lancaster, and we need to do it.
Second that.
Second from Ms. McGriff. Mr. Fogg, I appreciate your committee's work, and I would tend to leave it like it is, and because the $5,600 I don't think is going to go too far, and that maybe the county could find the $50,000 or $60,000 we could look for it and do it all at one time. So that's just my thoughts. Mr. Louise, do you have any thoughts?
No, Mr. Chairman, I agree with your assessment.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Falconberry. Appreciate y'all's work. All right, we have an amendment on the floor. We have Mr. Blackman's amendment. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approve.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Oppose.
Brian Carnes,
Deny.
Alan Blackman,
Approve?
Jose Luis.
Opposed.
3-3.
We have that amendment fails by this 3-3 vote. Is there any other amendments or proposals?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we instruct the county staff to look at this opportunity and to find ways that we as a county will be able to fund the funds that are needed by the Historical Society.
I can second that also.
All right, we have an amendment from Mr. Carnes, second from Mr. McGriff. Any discussion? All right, let's try voting on this one. Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff.
So, can,
Would-
Oops.
To be
Can I just
clear,
clarify?
yeah.
Mr. Louise.
so is this a proposal for the staff to look for something, or is this to actually allocate the amounts? I'm just not sure what we're voting for.
This is a proposal to have staff review this and find ways that we can fund it. It's not
And then it comes back to council for approval.
correct.
Okay.
So you will be adopting the resolution as currently stated with the amendment to come back to you.
All right, roll call. Let's start over.
Charlene McGriff.
Approved.
Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approved.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
Alan Blackman.
Approve?
Jose Luis.
Approve.
All right, our amendment passes unanimous, 6 for and 0 opposed. Any more discussion on this? Hearing none, we're ready to vote on Resolution 1264-2024 as amended. Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff.
Approved.
Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approve.
Alan Blackman.
Approve?
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
Jose Luis.
Jose? Did we lose him?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Approve.
All right, my lawyer's looking at him, give me that funny look. What have I done wrong? Well, let's correct it now.
You haven't done anything wrong. I just want to make sure I understand. You just adopt the resolution,
We
which
adopted
funds it at
basically.
these amounts. But the amendment was to look for additional funding sources for the Historical Preservation Society, correct? So it's outside of this resolution. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So we good? You good with that?
As long as that's the
All
understanding.
right, when I see that look, I know I done done something wrong.
Did we approve two different resolutions, or did we approve an amended resolution?
We approved and amended with the approved.
That's what I'm trying to clarify. There was just a vote on this resolution as it's presented to you. My understanding was the motion that was made that technically really wasn't an amendment. It's kind of a secondary motion was to find additional sources to fund the Historical Preservation Society. So we really have two different issues going on here as I'm taking it.
Do
So
we
we-
need to restate this?
Well, we probably need to start all over to do it right, don't we? Because we need to take care of the primary motion first,
And then.
because his amendment really was an amendment to this.
That's why my face was doing what it was doing.
So,
What do we need to do to back it down?
I make a motion that we redo this. So I call for a reconsideration of the votes.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Call for a redo. That's what we
We'll
reconsider.
need a second for that reconsideration.
I need a second.
For both motions,
Vote.
Reconsideration.
whatever it was we did.
Yes, sir.
Reconsider.
All right, let's do this right. Okay, roll call, please, for reconsideration.
Approved.
Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Jose Luis.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approve.
Alan Blackman.
Approve?
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, now we're already on the floor, so I don't need to rebring. All right, we're ready to vote on Resolution 1264-R2024 as presented.
As amended by Mr. Carnes.
No, it's back to as presented, Councilmember Louise.
We'll do a separate motion on that, Jose.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff.
Approved.
Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Jose Luis.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approve.
Alan Blackman.
Approve?
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval, 6-0, Resolution 1264-R2024. Now, can we,
If there are other motions related to items coming out of this resolution, yes, sir, those can be made
any
now.
other motions related to this item coming in?
Yes, can you reread my motions, Simpson?
look for other ways to fund the Lancaster County Historical Preservation Society.
That sounds good.
I'll
All
second.
right, and we had a second for that?
Ms. McGriff is second.
Ms. Wiggins
Yeah, I second
seconded.
that.
Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Ryan Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval to look for other means to fund the archives. Let's move on down to 8B, second reading of ordinance 2024-1913 regarding rezoning 2.56 acres of property from urban residential UR district to medium-density residential MDR district, and the applicant is Carlos Sanchez. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Blackman. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. There's been no change on this ordinance since the last time we talked about it. We talked on the last meeting about the potential for cluster subdivision, which is not available on this property, or even if it connects with the property next door, because of the minimum acreage required. And we talked about the fact that this, if it combines with the property behind it, would remove several manufactured homes in lieu of a single-family subdivision.
Any questions for Ms. Harden?
Ms. Harden, have
So,
you heard
Ms. Harden-
anything from Reed Point, anything about this? Isn't
Beg
that
your
what
pardon?
joins this property here?
There's been no change since first reading. The information that was provided first reading is still the same.
Okay.
Hearing no discussion, I think we're ready to vote on second reading of ordinance 2024-1913. Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Ryan Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have approval of second reading of ordinance 2024-1913 by vote of 6 for and 0 opposed. Let's move on down to second reading of ordinance 2024-1914 regarding rezoning approximately 5.8 acres of property located at 1743 Linwood Drive from medium residential MDR district to general business GB district. Applicant is Courtney Lopez. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion for Mr. Carnes, second for Ms. McGriff. Ms. Harden.
I'm happy to report there's been no changes since first reading on this one as well.
Questions? Hearing no questions, we're ready to vote on second reading of ordinance 2024-1914. Roll call, please.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approved.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Ryan Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval of second reading of ordinance 2024-1914. Let's move on down to our public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2024-1910 regarding approval of the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Who's going to do this?
Our Budget Director, Jamie Pavuznek.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got these names. Go ahead.
Good evening, council members, county staff. Okay. You all should have your notebooks in front of you tonight. We are behind the first tab. So you have copies of the presentation there where you can write notes. You have 3 goals for tonight. We're going to provide you with an overview of your FY25 operating budget and review the adjustments that you made during second reading. You will conduct a public hearing on your budget, and then we respectfully ask you to adopt tonight's budget. Here's your revenue update. This was information that you had at your first and second reading. During your first reading, you made an adjustment to the ad valorem, if you recall. So you see that number on the first line. We talked extensively about interest income, made an adjustment there as well. That's the third line. And then we had a request to include the ambulance charges. So that last line in the table, you will see actuals for 3 years, dollar changes, and the proposal for FY25 for revenue for ambulance charges at $3.2 million. And then that last column totals it up for you. And as you recall, we've worked on these projections in collaboration with finance staff, the county auditor, the assessor, and the county treasurer, county assessor. This was a request as well to do a comparison of actuals from May of 2023 to May of 2024. And so you see those revenue sources listed. We added ambulance charges to that. And then you've got the dollar change in the last column. And you see that 4.4 million number for ad valorem is as a result of, I believe, 3 or 4 new apartment complexes, if I'm correct there. Operating budget. Many of these slides you have already seen in your first and second readings. This first slide here is your overview. Your total for all the funds is the 161 number. Your total general fund budget is 90 million, 90.4. It's an increase over prior year general fund budget. Oh, do you have a different? Oh, excuse me. There is an update. Sorry, you do have an old presentation in front of you. The new number is, for all funds, is 149.3. Excuse me.
Whoa. So you're,
So on
and
the
what's in
slide is
here is the latest,
161.
greatest, what's in the notebook.
Yes, sir.
That number was lowered.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I apologize for that. That was my error. So it's in your notebook, all funds, general fund, all the minor funds, 149.3. The general fund budget, no changes, 90.4. That's a 3.1% increase over your prior year general fund budget. And then where do you have your decreases and your increases in the millage? So your general fund millage, 88.2. Your debt millage went down to 6 mils. Your overall change is a 0.40. And you are approving or considering approval of a capital improvement millage of 6.4. And you have in strike, it's not 7.20 in savings, it's actually 4.80 in savings of an owner-occupied residence at 300,000. So what you have in your notebook is final.
Are we going to talk about capital improvement millage later?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll hold my question until then.
Yes, sir. These are your, fund balance appropriations. This is the same information you've seen in the past. You've got a little over $1 million in one-time appropriations from your reserves, and those are all the things listed. Position adjustments, you've had extensive conversation around existing and current positions. So you have a change here of $211,000 for existing positions, upgrades and the like. These are department directors and number 2s, deputies, changes to existing personnel, 92.7 thousand. Then you've also discussed adding new positions You've discussed adding 9 new positions, and that is an amount increase of $808.6 thousand. Shifting to non-personnel requests. And this information should be familiar to you, same table from your first and second reading. You've got what the department is asking for and the amount. That's a total of 1.7 million. In the community, you have various community partners that request funds for local dollars. These are the requests, the community partners that requested county dollars. If you recall, you had extensive conversation around the Council on Aging and specific to the public transportation program. And so you decided to fund them at their full request of $100,000. The total here is 1.9 for your external requests outside agencies. And now to Mr. Blackman's point, here's your Fund 11 capital improvement, the replacement fund. We had lots of conversation regarding the mill increase here and specific to the sheriff's vehicle replacement program. So what we're proposing is there's going to be funding from 3 different places for these vehicles. The earmark will, the general fund, and also here, Fund 11. And that 550 will probably get him about 8 cars out of this particular fund, 3 different revenue sources towards the 30 vehicles. And that amount is a little over $3 million. And your overview, so this,
Second.
yes, sir?
Vehicle replacement. Go over that again about the,
Sure. Happy
this
to.
fleet vehicle, is this all sheriff's vehicles, or is this ambulance? I mean, I think we got ambulances separate. So you said that there's coming different pots of money for the sheriff's vehicle?
Just the sheriff, sir? Yes, sir. So his, for the all 30 vehicles, we are funding that, or proposing funding out of 3 places. The federal earmark, the general fund, which is where his normal, and 110, his normal operating budget.
Right.
And then here in the capital improvement fund, Fund 11.
But this 495 is all of his, right?
No, it's the 500,000, the 550,000, sir, the third line down. The 495 is our normal, our vehicle pool.
Right, that's the regular vehicle. That's what I'm speaking of. Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's 550. So the 495 is the vehicles that the other departments and stuff's using.
Through fleet maintenance. Yes, sir.
And our hope with this fund, as we talked about before, is raising the millage on this,
Sir.
is because in the past 3 years, we've done different sources of funding for sheriff's vehicles, knowing that we used ARPA funds in the past. We may not get a federal earmark every year like this year. We now have a dedicated fund where we can go forward, just like we've done with the ambulances as well. So I think this will help us get them on a regular replacement schedule.
Very good idea.
So this 550 represents how many vehicles for the sheriff?
If I recall correctly from Deputy Shaw, it's about 8 vehicles, maybe $63,000. You buy the vehicle and then you do the upfit.
Should be more than 8 vehicles. There should be more than 8 vehicles.
That's plus the
Huh?
federal 770,000.
Understand that.
Yeah, that 770 is outside of this fund.
So next year, when it's time to replace more vehicles, we have, what, about 19 we need to replace every year for the deputies?
I think it was 23, wasn't it?
Probably roughly around, could be 2021. Depends on, how we're finally getting caught up.
So we would, next year, if we don't have a federal earmark, we would have to be prepared for a much larger amount in this replacement fund.
Yes, sir.
And then the 2 ambulance purchases, we've always had that in the capital improvement fund, right?
Yes, sir.
the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's just the prices have gone up dramatically, so.
Okay. But I think that's good that we get these things systemically set so that every year, if we get a grant, great, it'll reduce it down. But if we don't get a grant, we know we're prepared to fund up for these vehicle replacements that we know is coming every year anyway. So I think this is good.
And this is your overview. You should be familiar with this slide at this point. I want to just point to the across-the-board salary increase, which is about halfway through the table. So that 800,000 number is for your sworn officers at roughly it is at 5% across the board. And then your non-sworn all others at 1.3 at a 3.5% across the board merit.
Now, the sheriff has a career ladder, so normally the money that goes to him, he allocates it the way he wants to allocate it.
Correct, and that's factored within the 5% that he does have his career ladder, depending upon longevity, certifications, and that will allow him to implement his career ladder.
Okay.
I want to make a note, too, on that 1.34 on your slide. The number in your book, the 1.36, is the correct number for non-sworn across the board. And this you should be familiar with as well. The last line has been updated to reflect third reading and your change in the millage by mill, by fund for the, from prior year. So if we just walk through it, we're proposing 88.2 for your county operating, your general fund, and that's a decrease from prior year. For your county debt, that was certified by your county auditor. That's a decrease to 6 mills. Your county capital improvement, which we just reviewed, is an increase to 6.4. County court security stays stable. Your total across that line is 104.5, and that's a proposed decrease overall from prior year of 0.40. And that mill value at the bottom of the slide is what's been certified by the county auditor, what 1 mill equals, the 518,000. Indian Land Funding Plan, Ms. Snowden has presented to you and others extensively on this topic. The proposed budget is $7.4 million. You are proposing a rooftop fee increase from $150 to $240, and there's your delta, $90 annually. And then the other change is the ERU square footage formula to $750. Your unit count is 31,000. Not 28.3. Any questions, thoughts?
And we have a public hearing tonight.
Mr. Louise, any questions at this point?
Yeah, Mr. Marshall, do you have any follow-up from our conversation at the last meeting regarding the planning and building department budgets?
Yes, I put some information in Friday's update to council, and so we did highlight the number of positions within our building department as well as our planning and zoning department. And so from the original line items that you may have been referencing or council saw with first reading, there were some position requests in there. Actually, a grant writer was in the planning request, as well as some other positions that reflect the request. Through third reading, you'll see the updated information on the wages line item. There is still an increase in the wages and line items, even though we have vacancies in those different departments. It reflects the 3.5% increase. So their line items for wages and salaries for those respective departments have gone up by the 3.5%. We have I believe 4 vacancies. We just filled one in the planning zoning. Our intention is to fill those 4 positions and hopefully expend those funds for new staff on the wages and salary. So yeah, that information we did present. If there's anything else we can address, let me know.
Yeah, so it's what you sent on the Friday communication,
Yes.
correct? So based off of that, so right now the building department has a projected actual through 6/30 of 7/31, 4/31, right?
Correct.
So then you add 3.5 to that, and it gets you to where?
No, we add the 3.5 to the budget from 23-24 to that 809 number.
But why are we adding it to the 909 if the actuals aren't meeting the 909?
Because the actuals right now reflect at least 5 vacancies in the department, and our intention is to have us at full staff in this next fiscal year. So we would budget on for those position salaries with the 3.5% increase.
So the vacancies in the building department are what cover that, like $300 or $200,000 with the 3.5% increase.
Correct.
Okay. Then if you look at the planning and zoning, I guess the same question, because if you're looking at the actuals, we're at 483, 142. And you said we just hired 1, we have 9, and we're hiring 4, but yet the budget is still 909. It's almost double.
Make sure I've got the right staff. So in the building, they have 15 positions. The building line item, 13 are filled, 2 are vacant. In the planning and zoning, we have 13 positions, 9 are filled. That's the one where there'll be 4 positions to hire in the planning and zoning. And so again, we took the budget from 23-24 and then did the 3.5% increase for this year's recommended budget.
Right, but I guess what I'm looking at is there's a $200,000 increase for the 2 positions. Is that correct for the building department?
If you're going a building, it's going from 8. Need my glasses.
You're at 731.
No, that's what we currently actually paid. That reflects the 13 positions that were paid with the 2 vacancies.
Correct. So you're at 731, and then if you add the 2 positions, you're going to get to 931. You're going to go to 200,000 for 2 positions.
Yes, in the building, because one of those is the deputy building official. So yes, that with the 3.5% increase, yes.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. So building we've got covered. Then planning, we have 4 positions,
And just
we're
filled. Yeah, and just filled 1. So yeah, we have 4 vacant now.
Yep. And so, but you're nearly doubling that budget.
Let's have the public hearing, then we'll get into discussion. We have a public hearing scheduled, but no one signed up for it, so we'll move past the public hearing. Do I have a motion to bring this item to the floor?
So moved.
Second. From Ms. McGriff. A second from Mr. Mosteller. All right, discussion. I think Mr. Louise's concern with the planning and zoning, with the numbers being low, we basically have had 5 vacancies, haven't we? And it's not 4 because we just filled 1, correct?
We had 4 vacancies, or excuse me, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vacancies. We just filled 1. We have we filled 2. We have a vacancy with a code enforcement officer lead, a senior planner, a planner, and a second code enforcement officer.
So we recently added the second code enforcement officer.
That was the one that was added last year.
I mean, in the last, as far as hiring them, boots on the ground in the last 30 to 60 days. So the expenditures, the positions have been vacant and have only recently been filled. So the actual expenditures were low because
Much lower.
we're way short on staff.
Yes.
Is that correct, Ms. Hard?
Yes, sir, it is. We hired Ms. Williams in March, I believe. We hired Mr. Lloyd about the same time. We are holding on to Mr. Hilford George. He is supposed to be coming after the summer. Right. It's a $30,000 difference total when you look at all the positions at the right place, the right time.
So how many do you have right now hired? The 9?
In-house or in the budget?
In-house, how many are actually, it's the same conversation we had last time. How many are actually there right now?
In the planning and zoning, there are 13 budgeted positions, 9 are filled, and 4 are still vacant.
And 2 were hired in March to Mr. Harper's.
Yes, 2 were recently hired.
So in that June forecast, I would guess, you're going to include about 6 months for one role between the 2. Right?
I'm sorry, say it again, I didn't quite hear that.
So between March to June is about 3 months. You had 2 that were hired in that time frame. So let's make an assumption that there's 1 role for half a year.
The roles of planning director have been filled by me in addition to my role as the development services director for a year. This month is my 1-year anniversary of being hired. So we had a planning director position that wasn't filled. We had the senior code enforcement and the planner position that wasn't filled. We also had the code enforcement officials that weren't filled. Then we had the one code enforcement official depart, and we replaced him. We had a considerable amount of time frame where we did not use the money that we had provided to us because we didn't have the people to do that. And we are now rebuilding that. And my salary, I hate to counteract what's been said, but the 9 that has been listed as being in our department, there's actually 10 because my salary comes out of planning and zoning as well.
Okay, so there's 10 positions for the 483. Let's assume that 2 of them are not included because they were hired in March, right? So you have 8 for 483 actuals.
Well, I think Ms. Williams, our new planning director, was hired in actually April. She come on board in April or May?
Came on board in April.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not even including them because I just took them both out. So I'm saying there's 10 positions. 2 of them just started. So that brings you to 8. So 8 positions, including you, Ms. Harden, are at that 483. Is that correct?
All the positions that were filled were in the 483, so.
Okay, so then you have 3 or 4 more positions to hire.
6. You took the 2 out of your calculation. I have to put that into the 4 that are still out.
So when you include the 483, you're including 10 people that we currently have.
The 483 are the people that are in-house, actual people.
And it includes the 10, including the 2 that were just hired. But it's not a full year for any of them, right?
There's not been a full year for those.
Correct. And they started March, April.
Yep. So the 483 is 7 people. If you're counting people that started mid-year or half-year, out of the pools. 483 is 7 people.
I think the way to get to the bottom of this would, and we're at the final inning of the game, but if we had a list of all, we wouldn't have to call them by name, but position numbers and how much we supposedly are budgeting for each position number. So, of course, so to Mr. Louise's point, you had 7 that worked, that's worked 11 months so far. And then you've got the rest of them that were vacancies, but there should have been money budgeted for those that were vacant in order to see the clearer picture of what that grand total is. And then that grand total times 1.035 would give us what is needed for the new year.
That would have been extremely helpful to have instead of the regurgitation of what we went over during the last meeting in our Friday communication.
But the number listed in the line item for the recommended does reflect the positions in that department being at full staffing with a 3.5% increase.
I have no idea whether that's accurate or not, because I don't know which positions have been filled, which positions are included, and what's missing.
Go ahead.
If I may just add to the narrative. So when you're looking at the budget and the recommendation, that recommendation of 909 includes filled and vacant positions. Your actuals.
I understand. I understand it all.
It's
What I don't
okay.
understand- What I don't have, and it's exactly what Mr. Blackman just said, is to have a clarification of which are the positions that are filled, how much is those salaries, and which are the positions that are pending, and how much is those expected salaries.
The last year's budget, what page are we on?
You're on page 4
No, but I'm looking
of your
for
council
the
communication.
department,
Oh,
the planning and zone, the total salary. Yeah. was-
you're asking about the line item detail, Mr. Harper? All right, just give me a hot tick.
Let me get back there. 032. Bear with us.
Sir, you're on page 25 in the general fund expenditures section of your binder, page 25 of 95. You're going to go over to Department 32 is planning and zoning. You're going to go down to the first line, and it's going to tell you in the first line exactly what you see on your council communication on Friday. So recommended at 909.6K includes vacant and filled. Your last year's budget was at 878.8K. That includes vacant and filled for that department. And then the actuals, the 483.1 is July through May and includes the filled bodies and just salaries for those filled bodies. So no fringe because it's broken out.
That goes to show how short-staffed we have been in the last year. Okay?
We are, if you count up the people that we didn't have at the beginning of the year as part of this, that's $377,000 of staff people that we had space for that we are starting to fill in.
Okay.
And when you're doing the math between the recommended and the budget, it's a 30,000 delta
Okay.
for vacant and filled positions in that department.
Mr. Marshall, for the future, and even for the next meeting, I'd still like to see what are the positions that are currently filled, listed by each position, what the salary for those positions are, and then what the salary is for the open remaining positions that have yet to be filled.
Okay, we'll provide that.
Okay. All right, you want to go ahead with the rest of your presentation, or
We've completed the presentation, so more about your discussion. If we can answer any other questions or move to vote or discussion.
All right, we're going to capital improvement.
They're two separate agenda items, so the operating budget needs a decision point.
Okay. All right, any more questions for staff on the budget?
So it's come to my attention that, thanks to Lancaster News and asking questions, that the city fire is going up, is proposed to go up a tremendous amount. And I'm not sure how that's going to equate to the salaries of our fire service. Have we looked at that? Because that was the one thing I said before we started this process. Let's look at our first responder salaries first, make sure we're competitive with the surrounding counties and any other comparables we need to be. And then let's look at pay raises for everybody else, make sure we're good there. That's how I really wanted this budget process to flow, but we've sort of just jumbled everything, and as we do every year. And so now it comes out that we're possibly going to be behind the city with our fire people.
So yes, based upon that, I did also send out some information last Friday. So if the city goes forward their budget adoption tomorrow night, they have some different pay structure where they're talking about doing some city employees get one-time boost, but specifically fire. We did do the apples to apples. With their raise of over 20% for the firefighters, they're actually trying to keep up to our raises that we did last year for our firefighters, is that their firefighter one, they have some different positions than we have, but with firefighter one, they will start out at $46,968 with this bump. Our firefighter one, even with the 3.5% pay raise, will be at $45,586. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Not all of our positions, so some of the other positions may have a higher pay right now, or some positions like lieutenants, I don't think they have, but we have, so there's some different rank differences between their pay structure and ours, but just a very basic firefighter one, that's the difference if they go forward with their pay scale. So that's what we've been able to determine so far.
Well, of course, I know this was last-minute information too, by the way, Dennis, so I'm not, it's easy to play quarterback after the fourth quarter, but I don't know. I wonder if we need to look at our fire employees.
I think we should, because the city is going to pull for, we have a fire school, which everybody knows at the vocational building, and we're training these people to come out of class. And if the city or Fort Mill or wherever's salaries is higher than ours, you know where they're going to go. So we've done this school to try to supplement our firemen. So if we losing them, we got to do something, and I do think we need to keep our salaries compatible with the other surrounding counties and the municipalities.
Well, you know, and we're, again, at the 11th hour, and I'm not sure, Council, this is just something I've thought of in the last few days. If we're not, you know, I wish the city and the county could be more transparent, cooperative in how we treat law enforcement, fire, because they don't have EMS, but they do have 911, so that we're not competing with each other's directly. I wish that could come to pass one day. But as I was looking at the millage, and I don't want to have a millage increase, but we do have a reduction in millage for this year, and I'm trying to find it, that page. And I think it's 0.4 of a mil, and if we multiply that times 518, the value of the mill, we will come up with a $200,000 there that maybe we could escrow, bring the millage back up to equal. I don't want to increase millage. But we go ahead and increase back up 0.4 of a mil, have that held in abeyance for some sort of resolution to make sure that we are going to be comparable, at least with the city, and pay for our firemen.
Is it legal to have a contingency fund or whatever?
You
It
can,
has to be, everything has to be specified or allocated.
So Dennis, are you saying that the increase that the city is giving, all the firefighters may not get that certain amount, depends on their rank?
A lot of them's going to get $4,000 more than what.
Correct,
More than
because
what's in the
their,
paper.
their structure is similar to ours. Beyond the new hire, people are accounted for their longevity, how long they've been in the service. And so, yes, there is differences within the ranks between the city and county. And like I said, for instance, the city doesn't have battalion chiefs. We have battalion chiefs. So there's some apples to apples that we can't quite make on some of those. But the new hire or firefighter one pay, that's kind of where you look and say, are you generally in the ballpark or not? And so as of now, I think for our firefighter one pay, or we may, depend on Indian land, we have 2 positions for firefighter that you all are considering tonight. So we know that there'd be 2 positions who quote unquote would be $1,000 some dollars potentially behind a city firefighter. So the impact doesn't necessarily go up the pay scale. So for instance, Mr. Player, leading our director, may be making more than the chief of the city. So it doesn't play out all the way up the pay ladder, but just so you know, right now, it impact 2, plus if Indian Land is hiring, how it affects theirs.
Well, right now, it's a $1,382 difference in those 2 amounts. How do we balance that out? Because it's no way to sort of figure that out to say this person will be making this, because everybody is ranked differently and you have some folks starting. So how do we make that, Alan? You came up with a suggestion. What are you saying to make it balanced out?
well, I'm just thinking this is going to take more study than we're going to get between now and 11:59 p.m. when I resign.
I know.
So I was just thinking we set aside money in the budget that we don't have to spend. We set aside money all the time for special projects that we don't even have a special project for. But we do it with the idea there may be a special project coming down the line in the current fiscal year we're budgeting for. So I don't see where there would be a problem if we set aside a potential X number of dollars to
You're saying,
pending a study by the old admin committee or something equivalent with Dennis to make sure that we're on board and competitive with the city.
You do have a couple options. One is
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
didn't we set the millage at the last meeting?
Not to exceed.
Then we had to have something set for advertising?
I believe you advertised it 91.8, and last month it went down to, or last meeting, it went down to 88.2.
Okay, so we have
So you have room
flexibility.
to move, yes, sir.
But I will say, so you do have an option, like you could say, we want to assign within fund balance some amount of money, should there be override in the wages line item for
we use
fire.
it or not, but we can set it aside.
Yes,
Necessarily have to use it,
Or,
some
yes.
of it, or none of it, right?
right. Or I can come back to you with, are we going to do a starting pay for firefighter one? Let that ride out through the year and see, maybe there are some savings. If there's vacancies in the wages for fire, whatever, then we can come back to you and do a budget amendment. Either if we see that brewing in December, or if we see at the end of the year that there will be some cost overruns in that wages line item for the fire department.
Yeah, I can see that. And as Alan said, we're not in a position to make an exact amount tonight, but we can set aside a certain amount to look at it and study it down the road. I like that idea because certainly we want to pay our firefighters as much or more than what the city firefighters are making.
This will also impact the Indian Land Pleasant Valley budget, so you got to take all this into consideration when you start adjusting firefighter salaries.
Now, will that mess
Yeah,
up the Indian
that's
Land budget?
That's a separate.
But if you took my suggestion, and again, there's other ways we can skin this cat, we may not cure the whole problem because we may not have enough money. But if we took that back to the millage numbers, so if we took that 0.4% times 518,000, that gives us $200,000 to set aside potentially to help get our firefighters at all levels closer to where they should be as compared to the city.
Well,
If it doesn't cure it, at least we got closer. If it does cure it, then great. But we may not be able to bring them all the way at one time this late in the
Does that
game.
affect the Indian Land budget that they presented?
It could, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And will we have to make revisions in that budget if necessary?
Yes, but yes. They do have some reserves that they may have to live off if you go down this route. But yes, that would mean a adjustment for next year's fee.
Now, when we're considering this, every one of y'all got this letter that I got, I'm sure, about this from this gentleman at work. He's an EMT for Lancaster County, making $13 an hour. This is ridiculous, guys. An EMT, this guy,
I was going to.
this is not good. This is something we need to look at also.
They actually make a lot more than $13 an hour.
Not starting, the EMT don't now. EMT starts out at $13 an hour.
Yeah, it does, and it depends on overtime and other factors, so yes.
Yeah, but
That's right.
somebody trying to make a living on $13 an hour ain't gonna get it.
And as of now,
You can go to McDonald's and make more than these guys make. $13 an hour. An EMT has to be a pretty smart cookie. I'm telling you, these tests these guys have to take and pass, become an EMT. These guys can go somewhere and make a lot more money than $13 an hour with the smarts that they have. These guys go on, and this one guy's talking here, he don't have the money to go on and advance further to get yet. He's got a family, and he's living on this $13 an hour. And also, he stated in here that the EMT school that we have, they come out and they ride with them, and they already decided to go to other counties because of the start pay here. That ain't good, guys. I'm telling you, $13 an hour for an EMT. This is something, this really slapped me in the face. It really did. I know they got opportunity to work over and make more money, but Lord have mercy, base pay of $13 is not good. That ain't good, I'm telling you. We got to do something about this. We need to find some little funds for that to get that up a little bit too. I mean,
Pay schedule of EMTs is based on overtime, isn't it?
There is built-in overtime as they do their scheduling, because from different counties, and Mr. Cato can speak to it, about whether you work on a 24-hour shift or a 12-hour shift and how many days on and how many days off. So we do have scheduled in overtime for our EMTs and paramedics. But you're right, at $13 an hour. And so if you're just working part-time and you're just working the minimum, then yeah. So they're scheduled to get the 3.5% as well, increase. But most EMTs and paramedics do have built-in overtime in their schedules because they work on and then off.
I get Clay up here. I'd like to.
Clay.
Clay says, leave me alone.
Ask him to explain. could you explain the $13.50 base pay
13-hour dollars.
and the overtime that's included in that?
Yes, ma'am. They started about 1320 to be exact. And then you multiply that by the 2,080 hours that they work. So it comes out to be $34,000 a year roughly. And then you add 848 hours of time and a half. And I was trying to get my phone to work here, and I could tell you how much. That's an extra $16,000 you add to that 34. So roughly you add 16 and 34, somewhere between 45 and 50 is what they make.
So the base pay with that overtime in there is right at 50,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Blackman?
I think. Let me make sure that's right.
Somebody call my name?
Yeah,
Louise.
while Mr. Cato is
Your
looking at that,
voices.
Mr. Black, would you feel comfortable kind of for that contingency to make it not just for the fire, but also for E EMS?
Yeah, but Clay, I guess the problem there is there wouldn't be enough money to do both, but we could prorate it between the two organizations and it would just have to be prorated fairly between the two.
How many EMTs do you have?
So I just figured it up. It's actually $43,040 a year is what they make. And if you compare that to the counties that touch us, we're the lowest paid. We run twice as many calls as a county south of us. A county to the west of us, we run 2/3. They run about 7. We run about 20. So we're working less for more.
No, you're working more for
More
less.
for less.
But if you want to go that way, Clay,
But listen to, we're on the third reading, y'all.
We are.
And we're talking about adding additional,
This is
let me
something that's
finish.
gotta be
Let me
addressed
finish.
later.
We gotta find a way, to agree, to do the third reading with the additions to EMS or the firefighters. We gotta find a way. I wish you guys had talked about this at least first or second reading. Nobody said anything. I wasn't here second reading.
I just got his letter today.
but the Lancaster News didn't report this until, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to blame Dennis for this. This was news that I got from the Lancaster News. So that's when it came to my attention.
Let me ask a question for Finance Administrator. If somebody makes a motion to go back to the same millage or whatever for that $200,000, would it be proper to add that to the county council budget under special projects? And then to be decided on at a later time?
Yeah, after adequate study.
Because it's got, if you are going to add it, and you don't, and there's no way you can prorate it right now when you don't know all the facts.
Mr. Harper, may I just,
Yeah, if you got any recommendations, please.
no, I just want a point of clarity to make sure. You are proposing adding an amount to the special projects account line in the council budget, so you're unappropriating salary dollars? Is that the question? Like you're dropping an amount into special projects?
We're just setting 4/10 of 1 mil to be added in the budget under the county council's subcategory, and we can call it special projects if we like. I'm not sure if we got a category for that in the general ledger, but but I'm assuming we do. We would just drop it there until further study. Then we'd have that much money that we could reallocate between EMS and/or fire.
Yeah, we can transfer, you're right, we can transfer that, yes.
A clarification, Alan, let me make sure. We're going to go with where we're at tonight, except setting aside an amount to go into special projects. And we will look at that at a different time once we have all the information. Okay.
Well, but are you saying there's this,
The original millage from last year, correct?
We would go back to.
Picking up is .4.
so the operating millage would go from 88.20 proposed tonight to 88.6. Is that?
That's correct. That's what I'm suggesting. I mean, there's more than one way to skin this cat.
Which generally, I think we said the 0.4 is like 200,000, 207,000. That
No,
could be then in a fund and county council budget.
Because we're trying to make the firefighters whole and the EMS whole, I think it's a good idea to do this, but I like the fact that we're gonna do it at a time where we have exact numbers and something that we can work with. Clay, is that okay with you?
How many EMTs do we have on staff, Clay?
We have 164 budgeted FTEs for street medics.
So we have 164 people,
64.
64.
64 FTEs for street medics. That doesn't include any of the office staff.
And Clay, what's the difference in what we're paying than the surrounding counties?
$1.50 at least.
$1.50
Yeah.
per hour?
Per hour, yes, ma'am.
Clay, and if I'm correct in my calculations, you said 50,000 per year
No.
was the max? It was
$43,040, and that's with what they're scheduled to work and their built-in 848 hours of overtime.
So based off of that, you're basically talking about $13.80 an hour if they work 60 hours per week.
We don't have any EMTs that probably make $13.80, except unless they've been here a while. Most of them make between $13.20 and $13.40.
Right. That's my point, that they're working much more than that. So based on even the overage that they're doing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that goes into the feeling that we currently have, well, we had 7, now we got 8 vacancies, so they're having to pull extra time to cover the trucks.
Right. So I like that idea, Alan, if we can do it.
Would that be the best place to, would you like to make?
You'll transfer it to compensation if you, once y'all decide, you would just take it from special projects. It'd be over 20,000, so the administrator couldn't do it, but the council would have to do it. Make a budget amendment.
Do you want to make a
Motion.
amendment to our budget?
I just can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm actually asking to change the millage in the wrong direction.
You are. I can't believe it either.
Me too, or don't strike.
Increase in anything overall.
I'm okay with it.
Things last year.
Right.
I am very okay with it.
So I recommend that we add into the budget under the council subcategory as a special project, or however a county department wants to describe it in whatever general ledger account they want to use, that we take $207,214 and add it into the council's budget, which would cause a 0.4% millage increase, which then makes our change zero. We will have a zero millage increase budget by taking this $207,214 and adding it to the council budget. It'll just sit there, special projects, whatever general ledger account they pick or choose that it needs to be parked in. The intent is that you guys would later, after much study, would decide that y'all would use it for compensation. Well, just, if you want the intent is to use it to increase compensation for fire and or EMS.
I'm gonna second that, but it's kind of long.
I think the short version is we would state it that the millage for county operating is motion to go to 8.6 mills.
You got that, Sherry? Do he need to repeat that? You got it?
We have it on tape.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, an amendment to raise the county operating from 88.2 to 88.6. Is that correct? Do I have a second for that? Second, Ms. McGriff, second. Any discussion?
For the record, I'd like to say that our county operating still is at a lesser millage for next year as it is for this year. So we have actually reduced millage in the, I'm trying to save my political career.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
I'd like to ask a
Please.
quick question, because I'm going to get a million questions as soon as I sit down. My phone's going to go off. Is this going to be looking at a dollar amount one time, or is this going to increase an hourly rate, which you would do with this amount of money?
That's what the study will have to determine.
Is that what y'all going to be looking at?
gonna
Like
be either
maybe a
or.
0.5% or 1% or something other?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get it figured out.
Because I'll get asked like a million times. Thank you, guys.
And Mr. Blackman, just to clarify, for your motion to amend is going to be that it's allocated specifically for the firefighters or for EMS.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion on that amendment? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Ryan Carnes.
Approved.
All right, any more questions on the budget? Third reading, last chance. All right, I think we are now ready to vote on third reading of ordinance 24-1910 as amended. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Opposed.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Ryan Carnes.
Approved.
All right, our third reading of ordinance 2024-1910 passes by a vote of 5 for and 1 opposed. Let's move down to our third reading of ordinance 2024-1909 regarding approval of the amendment to the capital improvement plan, the CIP. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Carnes. Who's going to do this one?
Uznak, our budget director.
Vision Act. Go ahead.
Good evening again, council and staff. This is your capital improvement plan. This is a document that is, well, the deck is behind your second tab in your binder, so you can land there. The capital improvement plan is a 10-year plan. It's a plan, a financial planning tool. Just want to clarify that. You originally adopted this document in July of 2021. The projects within the document align to two strategic priorities in the county's strategic plan: infrastructure and public safety. As part of the budget development process, each department director was asked to make updates to the existing CIP. So 32 new projects, CIP projects, were submitted through the budget development process. The total was $21.8 million. And we brought the document to the Lancaster County Planning Commission for review. The Planning Commission recommends unanimously the amendment to the CIP. And as you know, you have also an exhibit behind your PowerPoint that will show you all of the existing CIP projects, and the new is baked in. And once again, the CIP is a financial planning tool. When you adopt the ordinance, you're not authorizing funding at this point. Not at all. Planning tool. These are the new projects that were proposed. We had the Planning Commission do an exercise, a ranking exercise, and the administrator ranked the projects as well. So you should be familiar with these tables. There's your $21.8 million. Now, we are proposing, or initial conversations about, if we're not doing mill, what are we doing to fund some of these things? And that would be potentially borrowing. And so we'll probably come back to you later, Mr. Marstall, others, about a potential bond package. Of course, the Fire Station 3 construction and the engine that is attached to it, we might either bond for it, or there might be other options to fund these particular items for inland land. Very quickly, any questions, thoughts, considerations?
Mr. Marstall, got a question for you. At a later time, we will be able to go over this ranking and discuss it, our opinions on this, correct?
Yes, because that'll help inform. That's what I need to hear to inform a potential bond package going forward. So yes, we'll bring that. We can bring it back in July or August.
Okay.
All right, any questions? Any more discussion? Hearing none, ready for a roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Bostiller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
All right, we have unanimous approval of third reading of orders 2024-1909. Let's go down to second reading of orders 2024-1906 regarding a proposed transportation sales tax. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. McGriff. Second, Mr. Blackman. Mr. Marstall, Mr. Cato.
Yeah, we'll have Mr. Cato run through the presentation. We did make some adjustments. Two concerns that were raised about how we make sure we stipulate, highlight, outline the funding priority for 521. That has specifically been changed on the ballot question, which we'll highlight here in a second. So we name that as a priority with a dollar amount to be bonded. And then we also added to the ordinance the categories that Mr. Cato's gone through before. We'll go through again. So if you want to reference back, what are we going to be working on if this goes forward? It is now as a project summary list within the ordinance. So those two changes were added as a result of last meeting conversation. So if and then we do need to, you'll see Mr. Cato will highlight it when we get to the question about the ballot, authorizing a dollar amount to be bonded. And so we know if we do 60 million for Highway 521, but there may be other projects working with SCDOT that we would need a bond to put our contribution. So we have a recommended amount that we'll highlight when we get to that slide. So Mr. Cato, if you want to quickly run through the presentation from last time.
I sure will, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Marstall. We'll get to this as it's ready, but if I could have 1 minute to back up, please, if that's okay. Yeah, no, we're fine. On that, thank you so much for a third reading of a budget. I'm Jeff Cato, the Public Services Director. You all know me, and we'll be going through this presentation. But if you read that article that you referred to earlier, there's a flip side to those employees, too, and they were public works employees, which is what I am and is what I'll always be. So just hopefully we can keep that in consideration in the future as increasing salaries in other departments all as well with higher raises, too. We appreciate everything you give us, but just again, while I'm up here representing public services, I'd like to throw a shout out to them, too. They do amazing work for what they do. Thank you so much. And with the transportation tax proposal, we've gone through this with the CTC, done a really good job. As we know, we have 1,400 miles of publicly maintained road, and we're in need of a funding source. Right now, we have Capital Project Sales 2, a Capital Project Sales 2 proviso, which will be completed in 2025. Your annual transportation C funds and a road fee as well, but really just a drop in the bucket at what it proposes. What we're looking at in second reading tonight is a capital sales transportation funding source that will address transportation only. And again, just going through what we've been through, the county can have a capital sales tax and a transportation tax by state law. You can impose them for no more than 25 years or in smaller increments. I think we were looking at around the 15-year. And then revenue is estimated at about $400 million. And then again, with a current, you're looking at an average growth rate of 9.2%, and then a 15-year projection of $419 million. And again, all credit back out to the County Transportation Committee. We started meeting with them in January after our retreat, and they reviewed over 130 individual roads, 50-plus intersections, safety concepts, trails and sidewalks, and any and all transportation-related items, and recommend over 125 roads and projects to be done. And they kind of categorized them as best they could because they had a lot to look at. One would be like your Highway 521 and then some major road widenings. You're looking at a concept estimate of $165 million there to do those. Highway 521, Harrisburg Road, Barberville Road, Henry Harris Road, and Riverside Road. All that's totaling about $165 million concept estimates. Then you go to intersection improvements. Again, we've gone through them. Shiloh, Unity, 601 at 265, all the way down to Bethel and Bethel Boat Landing Road. Then you have some other things like some already specified out roundabout recommendations. And again, all this is in coordination with SCDOT, as the majority of these projects are on SCDOT right-of-way. Got about 5 roundabouts proposed in this concept. And then you got some Lancaster County maintained road priorities, a little bit bigger projects than we would normally do through a capital sales or a C-fund type contract, which usually involves some type of widening or rehabilitation or something. We have a few candidates on there that they looked at. And then, true, in talking around with our local municipalities, we've met with them on this, their staff at least on most of them, and City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Town of Kershaw, Van Wyck, Heath Springs, and then with SCDOT on some lower volume type roads. I'm sure you all have them in your district, have a lot of driveways on them, a lot of people live on them, but they usually don't add up to getting put on one of the federal aid type contracts, bigger, more primary type roads. So that, to me, that's a big one because that's estimated at around $100 million. That's money you can put out every year, and the county could assist the DOT as we do with some of our C-fund programs. That's stuff we can take care of, and you would see production every year, whether it's inside the city limits or the town limits or out in the county, even out with folks that are still living on gravel roads that have a need to have those roads upgraded as well. So this is a real good funding source, and again, our idea going into it, or from the county's standpoint, would be to get some of this out every year. So I really, really support CTC for looking at that type of thing. And then, too, speaking of SCDOT, their secondary roads, a lot of them in bad to poor shape, need improvements, need rehabilitation, resurfacing. Here's some of the lists CTC looked at that are highly traveled SCDOT roads, but maybe not at the top of the priority list that they currently have for the funding that they currently have. So you add in another $25 million for that, you can get going. And then under a slide, again, we talked about upgrading some business parks with economic development or some road connectivity like out in the Air Rail Park. And then another huge concept idea that could be funded by this too is possibly some future collector roads. Heard me say it a lot. You can't widen your way out of congestion. So possibly a future collector road study plan or whatever adopted. This could be a funding mechanism to help procure some right-of-way before a development or a business is built where that right-of-way could go. Greenways, sidewalk repairs, you've heard us talk about that. You have Indian Land Trail, Lindsay Pettis, miscellaneous sidewalks and trails. You know, that's just a concept estimates there. And then a miscellaneous, again, with this type of funding, then the county could use, could help leverage funds out of, DOT or another organization or some way to partnership to get your road transportation needs addressed in some type of partnership. You're going to have property acquisition with a lot of these, especially your bigger projects. Everybody knows that is a deal staller or in some cases a deal killer. So you need to be prepared to have the cost of that. Utility relocation. Again, project management and administration. The county is going to be involved in a lot of these, whether it be county roads or some smaller DOT projects. And then again, even with the other projects that DOT would be administering. Going to need a project manager if we adopt this type of funding and have this type of program. We're going to need some staff here to help manage this. Then, of course, just inflation and contingency. These were all estimates done 2023, early 2024. who knows what they're going to be in 27, 28, 29 if this were to be passed. So you got to figure in on some inflation, and I can guarantee you the price of asphalt probably isn't going to go down anytime soon. Flipper's gone. Can't seem to move it forward. That's all right. There we go. And then again, the staff recommendation. CTC at the end of their last meeting in March, they'd come up with around a $305 million concept. After staff reviewed, again, talked to our local municipalities, local DOT internally, with other departments, emergency services, things like that, we kind of added in another $95 million or so to get the number at a $400 million price range, which we think is the target, what this tax could generate. Again, it's 125 plus projects. You see, you add them all up with the concept estimates, you get a total of around $400 million. And then 4 counties have them. Ori's discussing, as we are. 2 potential counties have 3 local sales taxes, being Berkeley and Charleston, potentially Ori. And then there's your number of your sales tax by county. And then this slide here would be the ballot language, which I think we had the question on. I'll let Mr. Marstall handle that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cato. So we want to make sure you see one of the changes from second reading to third reading now is, first reading, second. Question number 2 there, the middle way through the sentence, to fund at least $60 million for the widening of Highway 521. That is an added information for the ballot question. So we're clear with the voters that we would bond for that. I did say to appropriate the issuance of not exceeding. We don't know now, as I said. In addition, we're anticipating we'd have to give SCDOT the $60 million to help start the project, but for other projects, if we're widening Henry Harris or others, that we may have to have upfront funding as well in the bank with them. So we would suggest that we say issuance not exceeding $250 million, not exceeding $250 million. That will allow us to make those payments if we need to in the first 7 years to get our commitments lined up with SCDOT or to make the matches with the federal funds if there are some federal funds. But that needs to have a number in there when it goes on the ballot. And so we just wanted to highlight that we did hear from the last conversation with County Council about calling out Highway 521 even more on question number 2 with the dollar amount in there. And then stipulating for third reading, we want to have a dollar amount not exceeding. And our recommendation, talking to bond counsel, legal counsel, that it would be 250 would be a number that would be reasonable from their perspective. Next slide. Yeah, so we highlighted last time. It's up for you all to decide if you want this to go to the ballot in November. I know there's other factors to consider, but basically we brought this forward after hearing or knowing we have no dedicated funding for our roads other than the limited amount that we've been able to generate from our road fee, what we do get from SCDOT, and without a funding plan, we will continue to be significantly dependent upon SCDOT and their timing of funding. So that's what we had for you. And again, we want to highlight, if you have the ordinance pulled up in the agenda packet on page 2 of 9, which is on page 486, however you're looking at it, we do have that separate section 1E where we do highlight 521 widening. We highlight the $60 million in there. We also have on page 3 of 9 of that, which is page 487 of your document, we did include again Highway 521 3 times in that paragraph. We highlighted the $60 million to make it clear that's our priority. And then we also reference that again in question 1. We do have Highway 521 stated in question 1. And then in question 2, we again updated that to highlight at least $60 million for the widening, and then we put the attachment to the ordinance that does list the roads, some of the projects by categories. So I think we addressed some of the conversation from last week, and welcome any other conversation or questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Marshall, what happens if question 2 is not approved, but question 1 is approved?
Then the measure, I believe, will be invalid, will fail. You can't do 2 without 1.
Okay.
We wouldn't have the revenue to do number 2, so the ballot question would fail.
Okay, so it needs both.
What did he say?
I can't hear.
What did he say?
What'd you say, Mr. Louise?
So it needs both.
Yes, it does need both.
Question one.
Yeah, both have to happen.
All right, now you were recommending 250 million to bond out. Do we need to include that in our motion or?
We'd welcome that as an amendment to
And that's
list.
from our bond council, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so the final ballot question would be 250 if you want to amend that.
Yeah. All right, discussion.
We do have a motion. Is there a motion?
We
done done.
We
Yeah.
got a motion to bring it to the floor. Mr. Mosteller has the floor.
As I said in the first reading, I think we should slow this down and have more time to identify these projects, maybe put it off a year or whatever. That the $580 million school bond on the ballot in November could fail this. If it fails, getting it passed at another time could be challenging. So if we're going to pass it, it needs to be sure you're doing it right to get it passed the first time. But it's sitting there beside a $580 million school bond, sitting beside it or right after it or wherever it lines up at, ain't good. So I cannot support it at this time.
All right.
I agree with Mr. Mosteller. I think that's going to be an issue. And then it still doesn't address the full concerns that we addressed at the last meeting, which was not just the 521, but it was the allocations that we've talked about over and over again based off of what the CTC has recommended.
Mr. Chair, if we're gonna do anything about the Indian Land area widening or making adjustments to that area, paving the state roads that's in the city, and making these adjustments, delaying it is not going to solve the problem because it's going to continue to go up. So this is a source of funding for the roads. If it doesn't pass, we give it to the voters. If it doesn't pass, they make the decision that they didn't want these roads paved. I think we need to put this on the ballot and let our citizens make up their minds. And if they don't, then that's where we're at. But right now, I think as a council, we don't have an alternative. This is a dedicated funding to build our roads and resurface our roads. So I'm in support of it.
Chairman, I understand what Mr. Mosteller is saying about the school bond. Unfortunately, school district is just as committed to getting their bond passed as we are committed to getting roads done. So whether we do it this year and it fails and the school bond fails, the school's going to come back next year and going to do the same thing. So if we hold it off and the school bond fails, they're going to come back next year and we're going to still have two competing bond issues. But the reality is that we're going to have another year of inflation on top of doing those roads and another year down the road.
All right. Any more discussion? We need a dollar amount if we need to. Would somebody make a motion, an amendment on question number 2, approve the issuance of not exceeding an amount in there, please?
I make a motion that we include in that question to $250,000 million. $1 million.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Griff. I have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Carnes. Any discussion on that? Hearing none.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, I'm going to support this second reading. I'm going to support the $250 million, although Man, y'all, that's a lot of money. You know, some we should be taking lightly, and we don't, I know. But I'm going to support this because y'all still have a third reading yet to go. But I do believe we've got to put something out for the people to vote on. And it's going to be their decision, not ours, whether this passes or not.
That's right.
So that's why I'm able to vote in favor of this tonight.
All right. We have an amendment on the floor for question number 2 to approve the issuance not exceeding $250 million. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Deny.
Jose Luis,
Deny.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes,
Approve.
Our amendment passes by a vote of 5 for, 4 for, and 2 opposed. All right, any more discussion on second reading of ordinance 2024-1906? Hearing none, we're ready to vote on second reading of ordinance 2024-1906 as amended. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Deny.
Jose Luis,
Deny.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
All right, so second reading of ordinance 2024-1906 passes by a vote of 4 for, and 2 opposed. Let's move on down to our discussion and action items. We need to separate out one of these, and then we have a Scribner's error on another one. The last, at the bottom down there, that John Paul Cavalier should be Jason Paul Cavalier, and that's just a Scribner's error, so it was.
Correct.
All right. So the, we need to take out, do I need a motion to take out one, or just, we gotta do one separate, on Alan Patterson. I think we have the wrong address.
You can take each of these individually, or you can group some of them together and leave one out. It's however you choose to do it.
Let's leave Alan Patterson out and do it separate. All right.
So I'm sorry. So I think there was another one that had Shelley Richards was also had a Charlotte address
Yeah,
on the
that's why
application.
that's why we're taking it out separately. We're going to amend the address to the correct address.
As you go through each one. Okay.
All right, somebody,
But
will somebody make that motion?
I think Mr. Lew-
Okay, Mr. Black made that motion.
second.
We had a second from Ms. McGriff. All in favor of these applicants, raise your right. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
All right, we have unanimous approval of these appointments and reappointments to the various boards and commissions. And I need a motion on Mr. Alan Patterson.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the application for Mr. Alan Patterson for Planning Commission with the following changes made to his application. His home address should be listed as 206 Niven Road, Lancaster, South Carolina, 29720.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Carnes. We have a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
All right, we have unanimous approval for Mr. Patterson for District 7 representative on the Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Louise brought up some new information about Miss Shelley Richards. Was there a different address that you had identified, Mr. Louise?
Yeah, the address that's on the application says Charlotte. That's why I thought we were splitting them up. That's what I was voting for.
So do we have a different address? I mean, checking the application.
And I think Mr. Patterson's, he referred to District 1 in his application. I believe he's District 7.
That's correct. He's moving to District 7.
Correct. Well, he's already in District 7.
I think that's
think
her
it was just
business
as part of the
address.
thing. His business address was in District 1. His home address is the one that's in District 7.
Yeah,
He's off next. Yeah.
yeah. Mr. Patterson was in District 1 until we redistricted, and then he
Correct.
moved into District 7. Yeah, that's correct. District 7 moved to him instead of him moving to District 7.
Correct.
But he will be representing District 7.
So, Mr. Chairman, Michelle Shelley Richards, so when these applications go on the agenda, their home addresses are redacted because we do that. We just don't put out home addresses and phone numbers. But her actual application has her home address in District 5.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to show it to anybody if they want to see it, but they are redacted as per we're supposed to do.
I know where she lives.
Nope. I'm good with that, Sherry. I just wanted to make sure that we had the correct addresses reflected.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. I need a motion to go into executive session for the receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to an economic development project, Nutramax Laboratories, and to invite the economic development staff into executive session to discuss this matter.
Motion to approve. Second?
I have a motion from Mr. Blackman, a second from Mr. Carnes to go into executive session. Roll call, please.
Did he say something?
Roll call for executive.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis.
Approved. And do you all need me to attend executive session, just as a clarification?
We will call you, yes.
But you need me, or can I not attend?
I think you're fine to miss yes, you're fine to
Okay.
miss.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval to go into executive session. We are now in executive session.
So, Mr. Luis, I'm putting you as leaving at 8:15. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sherry. Feel better.
Thank you.
Charlie, can you believe Alabama raised taxes the last thing ever?
Cannot believe, I almost passed out. Well, I changed, I went back to my original color without the gray.
Ready? I'd like to call this meeting in Lancaster County Council back to order at 8:29. We're coming out of executive session. Do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So move.
Have a motion for Mr. Blackman, second for Mr. McGriff. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff. Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Jose's gone now. Steve Harper.
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
Alan Blackman.
Approve.
We have unanimous approval to come out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, council met in executive session in regards to one item, the receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter relating to an economic development project, Nutramax Laboratories. No motions were made and no votes were taken.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blackman, would you make a motion?
Yep, I reluctantly make the motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
We have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Blackman, a second from Mr. Carnes. Roll call, please.
Charlie McGriff. Billy Mosteller.
Approve.
Steve Harper.
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
And Alan Blackman.
Approve.
We have unanimous approval to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.